Hey, this is JD,
And Eli,
introducing the GamePitch podcast.
a brand new podcast launching on the Project Nerd Network. JD, you want to tell everyone what we're all about?
Well, for starters, we're about games
Yeah,
and pitches
yeah.
and game pitches.
This all makes sense.
Every Monday, we're going to cover the week's biggest gaming news. We're going to hand out some industry red cards and pitch a brand new game idea.
For our first few weeks, we'll drop new episodes Monday and Thursday to give you a larger sample of the series. I'm Eli.
And I'm JD.
Let's get to the show.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Game Pitch podcast. I'm JD Osorio. I'm here with my co-host Elijah. Elijah, you want to say hi?
Well, hello, listeners, and of course, hello to my favorite Game Boy, J to the D.
Oh, buddy. It is going to be a long show. Speaking of long show, we have a packed show this week. Tons to talk about. Animal Crossing Direct, Rainbow Six, next gen compatibility announced. We are going to do a lot of talking about that. Halo Nerf guns. If you needed an excuse to buy Nerf guns, this is probably the reason. It's my turn to pitch a game this week, and we have a lot of other stuff to talk about. So before we jump in, Elijah, what are you playing this week? What games have you been kicking around?
I've been streaming Control. It won Game of the Year from IGN, and it won a ton of awards. I'm a fan of Remedy, and I am finally playing through it. I'm having fun. It's really cool. At first, it was told in a weird way, but I don't know how far I am in it, but I'm enjoying what I've played so far. And then I jumped on Battlefield 2 again because it was $12, and man, is that game effing cool! It's just
that's a great one.
Scrumptious. It's just you're running around as a clone, and then like Obi-Wan's just there, and he's like, "Hello there," and you're like, "This is the thing that I wanted to happen my whole life. Like it's exactly what I want."
This is it.
Yeah, it's 100% the only thing that I want in my life.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So what are you playing?
Oh man, so I have been just kind of casually playing more Pokemon Shield, filling up my Pokédex, just sort of in between spare moments here or there. I still have Kentucky Route Zero that I'm trying to play through, so I'm one of the people who didn't jump into any of the acts yet. And so I think when they announced the final Act 5, there were so many people hyped to finish this thing that they've been playing over the course of like 7 years. And then there's me who's like having friends that are like, hey, have you played this? Like, I'll play it when the whole thing comes out. And now the whole thing is out. And I'm like, oh man, I really need to get in there and finish that. So yeah, that's what I've been up to.
I've downloaded Kentucky Route Zero, but I have not played it. Like it's just sitting on my Switch, as a lot of games do.
It is like an interactive book, which I love, and the writing in it is insanely good. And so it's one of those things, I don't want to rush it. I really want to take my time and just like play it when I have undistracted time to devote to it, which has not been in a lot of supply lately. So that's kind of why I haven't really got to get back into it, but soon, hopefully.
Well, I'm jelly because I want to play it, and I like those. Some people call them walking simulators, but I really like those. I'm a sucker. I played every Telltale game, like Wolf Among Us and all the Game of Thrones ones and all the Guardians of the Galaxy ones, both Batmans. I got through most of the way through Walking Dead, and then the Michonne one came out, and I was just like, I'm done here. Like, I'm not.
This is the end for me.
Yeah, and I never finished Clementine's story like a real jerk, and I kind of want to. But yeah, I mean, you're making me want to play Kentucky Route Zero, and I know it's on the queue. I just don't know where it falls. Like, I don't know if it's next or third next or fourth next, but it's there.
Well, as long as it's on there, then I think you're in good shape.
The thing that is actually going to probably push it further and further down the queue is the first thing on our scouting report.
Oh, man. So let's talk about this. I feel like this is the piece of news that I want to talk about the most. Animal Crossing Nintendo Direct, 27 minutes of just absolute pure joy coursing through my entire body watching this video. I don't even know where to start. Let me throw it back to you. You got to watch this, right?
Yes, I did. I've watched it twice because I just had it up on my phone at work because I was working, but I would just glance over and then I did a full watch through as well.
So I was actually at work. I didn't have a chance to watch it live. And so I had a bunch of people just texting me all day, have you watched yet? Which, no context, but I knew exactly what they were talking about. And so I actually didn't get to watch it until way later that evening. And I'm glad I did because I was just at home, had it on my phone, volume as loud as it could go, so I could just watch Tom Nook and all of his unbridled glory, just already setting me up to be so in debt to him.
I've seen a lot of things online. I mean, there's just memes for days, and there's
All day.
people getting crazy about the new characters and being excited. And we live in a new world now where Nintendo is willing to update the games and give us new content. So I think that's really exciting for Animal Crossing. They
Oh,
said we're
yeah.
going to get a bunch of free stuff, but if they need to charge us for a content pack, I'm going to pay them for it. Like, I'm just going to do it.
Absolutely.
My favorite thing that I've seen so far is like how it's like, hey, you're a villager. Hey, now you're the mayor, and like now you're like a god, and you're just like tearing up the island. I think my plan is that I'm gonna like try and split up the island into like 4 quadrants, do
Okay.
different colors in each quadrant, do like a cross down the middle of the island, and split it up into 4 pieces. I think that's my plan, and I'm gonna segregate people based
Oh
off.
no. Oh no. This is sounding very Germany 1930s, and I don't know if I like the direction that you're taking your island.
Well, sir, you don't have to visit it, so.
I don't think I will, because I don't think I'll ever be able to leave.
Okay, well, what was the highlight of the direct for you? Was there like a moment where you're just like, yes, this is what I want to see?
Yeah, I think it's probably a highlight that everyone is talking about, and I think you touched on it really briefly with the way you can customize terrain, but it feels like everything is customizable. You can put pixel art on pillowcases and on your shirt. You can put tiny little pieces of art on coffee mugs, right? There's so much detail that you can put into your own little world. That's amazing. Like, it's going to be so cool, because when you visit somebody else's island, it's going to feel like a completely different area, because that person's kind of digging in and doing anything they feel like they want to, right? So what you're doing is going to be completely different than what I'm doing, than, you know, what our friends are doing. And then when we go visit random islands, like, they're going to look so different. And I'm pretty hyped for that. I think that's super awesome. And I love the direction they're taking with it.
I think you touched on the thing that I think is the most important for the series going forward, or more important for its global appeal, is the customization to the items down to the pillowcase artwork.
Totally.
I think that there's going to be an interesting secondary market that springs up, that like people might start like, hey, if you subscribe to my Patreon, you're going to get this many patterns per month. Or I think there will be, and I don't know if Nintendo can regulate that in a way, like, you know how like Diablo had people selling the in-game items for real money, that kind of thing. I just wonder if people are going to sell their digital wares like, hey, it's a buck and you get my entire pattern collection. I send you the code for it. And most of that stuff, or maybe a lot of the stuff, will be free.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can just grab something that you see in someone's town and put it in your town too. But I do think there could be a secondary market where people could like customize and build stuff for you specifically. I think that'd be cool.
That's super smart. I had not even thought of that, but that's so true, that it really does open up almost this secondary economy that weaves with the game, that is toes in the real world, toes in New Horizons, and like this real money exchange for pattern. There's amazing artists out there that are going to create things so much better than I even can fathom, to see that stuff. And then if there is an option for me to be like, oh, it's like $2 and I can buy that pattern from you, like, all right, take my $2, right? That's super smart. I hadn't thought about that, and I really love that.
Can you talk to me a little bit about Isabelle?
First, to talk about Isabelle, but to not talk about Doom tweeting at Nintendo asking if Isabelle is going to be there would be a massive disservice. If you haven't seen that, we will link the tweet in the show notes, because it's amazing. But I love this sort of partnership, tag team friendship that has been born from both Doom and Animal Crossing launching on the 20th. It's so good. But my favorite
for everybody.
It really is. It's something for everybody. The other thing I absolutely love, though, is Isabelle in these promo shots. She's sitting at her desk, and what could only be described as a glass of just straight whiskey is sitting there, which I've come to learn has been retconned as what they call vacation juice. And so now, if I go on a trip, like, so later this week I'll be in Disney, and so if I am just like getting absolutely hammered, I can just say like, oh no, I'm just sipping on my vacation juice. Like, you can't throw me out. Like, this is just vacation juice.
Okay,
amazing.
So along the lines of Isabelle, am I allowed to throw out some concerns? Like, where's my KK? Like, where's he at?
Absolutely.
Where's Rossetti? What's going on with him? I think they said Rossetti has a new job. So I'm just like, where are these people at? I need KK Slider. I need the guy.
I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think that they are being very smart about showing us just enough to continue this absolute hype train over the next month. And I think they're going to drip out like over Tom Nook's official Twitter account, right? Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
teased it at the end of the direct. I think we'll see a lot more go on that Twitter over the next couple of weeks.
Is there a chance that KK Slider is like asking for more money than Nintendo's willing to pay him to perform inside of Animal Crossing and license his songs again? And he saw like the money that like who was it? Was it Deadmau5 was getting in Fortnite? Who did that concert in Fortnite? Marshmello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Marshmello.
He was like, look, if Marshmello's getting these kind of dollars, I'm KK Evan Slider. I've built these game concerts. Like,
Are you implying that he will be the next big Fortnite event?
yes, yes, I am.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a world I want to live in.
Can you imagine what would happen to the internet if like they're just like, oh, next big it's a secret, they don't even announce who the next Fortnite concert is, and then like it happens and it's just meet not like just
Dude, yeah, there will be pure rage and maybe some excitement. I'm not 100% sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll know in a month, right? When this pod officially just becomes an Animal Crossing pod.
Yeah, is it ever going to become Animal Pitch or Game Crossing?
Animal Pitch Game Crossing.
Perfect.
We're gonna get it all in there.
All of it.
All of it. So
let's move on.
We're gonna talk more about Animal Crossing consistently over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're gonna move on for now. Let's talk about something completely different.
I think this is kind of falls in line with my specialty because I did movie camp before and I review movies specifically for our co-friendly website, projectnerd.com, where we both write. There are a lot of video game movies in the works. There's a lot of comic book IPs that have been grabbed up by all of the Amazons and Apples and Netflixes and all of that. But I think things are starting to pivot towards gaming, and that could be so true right now because we have awesome news about the Uncharted movie finally happening, finally coming to fruition.
Starring Tom Holland as a young Nathan Drake, which I love Tom Holland. I think he is an excellent Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And yes, there is a difference, right?
Yes.
And I think he does both brilliantly. And in this interview that they had with comicbook.com, they talked about how they're going to be drawing a lot of inspiration from Uncharted 4. And so even though the movie is going to kind of be a prequel of sorts, they're still going to be referencing a lot to the end of that game. And I think that'll be really interesting parallel because we've seen this story over the course of 4 games of Nathan Drake. And now we're going to get some insights as to the young thief right before all those adventures while still tying it in heavily to the end of the games. And I think that's a smart way to do it.
So this is the one I think I have the most problems with because I've always felt that Naughty Dog's games are essentially movies. So if of all the video games I want adapted, like a BioShock or a Mass Effect, these universes that I think lend themselves to movies, I think Uncharted was the one that I'd say I wanted the least. But it does make sense because there's the template for it. There's already things like National Treasure and Indiana Jones, and that's just essentially what this is with a new take. I actually think Tom Holland's the wrong pick for Drake because it's weird that they say that this movie is kind of based around Uncharted 4. So does that mean they're going to have his brother in it in some sense? The brother being in it makes me think Sully would get less screen time, and maybe we'll get the Spider-Man like the Sully Uncle Ben and the Peter Parker Tom Holland kind of like maybe we'll get that on screen anyway if we're not getting it in the MCU. But I think the thing that's most concerning to me is that the young Drake stuff is in Uncharted 3, and that seems what is perfect for Tom Holland, not necessarily the content of 4, because 4 kind of reckons with the whole series and kind of ties a bow onto everything, and then the nostalgia of Naughty Dog itself. And I wouldn't have started there. I would have even maybe done Golden Abyss, the PSP story, before I would have approached 4. So I don't know if they're directly adapting any of the stories, but taking inspiration, I guess.
Yeah, I think, and I think they did mention in that interview that it isn't going to be, like shot for shot things from Uncharted 4 are in this movie. I think they just are trying to find a clever way to tie it back. And that's not to say they didn't explicitly say like it's Uncharted 4 and that's it. There very well could be stuff taken from all these other games. So yeah, I'll be extremely curious to see kind of how it gets written and how it kind of gets put together. The other thing, so to transition, so obviously that's an exciting one, but the other big movie adaptation that was announced this week is that Eli Roth is going to be directing a Borderlands movie. And that is super cool, right? Eli Roth is pretty much a horror director, I think, for the most part. Like that's his genre focus is horror. And then to tie along with that sort of scary, spooky, creepy aesthetic, the lead writer for Chernobyl, the HBO miniseries, is going to be writing the script. Chernobyl was absolutely phenomenal.
Incredible film.
That's quite the pairing. And that's basically all we've got, right? Like, they haven't really said what the story is going to be told. Like, is it a story we've seen in the games, or is it just something happening in the universe of Pandora? Like, we don't know yet. I'll be very curious.
What I would say is, I think you started with the most important point, like Eli Roth being tied to this, because
Sure.
that says up front like what the tone is. The Blumhouse guys,
Yeah.
they've had so much success like with this revitalization of horror, whether it's stuff like Get Out or
Yeah.
they've just been going all in. I mean, like the Saw reboot that's happening with Chris Rock, all this stuff that they've been doing has been really impressive. So I think there's like horror didn't go away, but there's this like really cool revival of it. And I really think that like if they were to do a BioShock movie, I would want it to be heavy horror. Like that's what I would want. And
it has to be.
yeah, and I think leading into Borderlands, because Randy Pitchford, he's one of the executive producers on the movie too, correct?
Yeah, he is going to be one of the executive producers, which is probably really good to have.
So if we get like a slasher type Eli Roth movie paired with the Borderlands Deadpool-y sensibility, I think that'll be really fun to see on screen. With a different director, it could have been like The Rock is Brick, and they're just like, trying to copy paste as much as they can. Just put Borderlands in the name and just make whatever movie. Who cares? With this casting and with these people in it, it seems a little more in the vein of them trying to make something for the real Borderlands fans.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think obviously they're appealing to the Borderlands fans, but I think there's obviously a very wide appeal by getting these extremely talented directors and writers on board. And I think that's going to serve it well, where it's not just like, hey, this is a video game movie, right? But it's like, this is a horror movie that just so happens to be inspired by a very popular game franchise. And I think that's going to serve it extremely well. And I think it's going to do a lot of good, not just for this particular movie, but sort of this movie adaptation theme that we're seeing across the board. I think if this does well, following a formula like this, it's just going to continue to serve other IPs, and maybe we will, get that BioShock one that you're wanting. Obviously, it's something I would love to see. Everyone that 2K Games Take-Two, I know you listen to this podcast. Please, let's start working on some sort of adaptation, please. That's what we're looking for.
It seems like a lot of people are working on games that are going to be on both consoles: PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. And I believe that's what's happening with Rainbow Six, correct?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Rainbow Six Siege. Ubisoft came out and they said that effectively they are going to be looking to take this game, this very now successful, didn't launch successfully, but they kind of 180'd it in the most spectacular way. So they're taking this game and they're going to move it onto the Xbox Series X and the PS5 whenever those launch. We presume late this year. Well, we know for the Xbox, we presume for the PS5. The really awesome part about that is that they're going to have cross-generation play with the current gen. And that is amazing. That's so great to see that as they start to think of their development plans and the roadmap going forward, they're going to be using Rainbow Six, which is a very heavily populated shooter still. And it's only going to make whatever they learn from that game better as they start to make other games that have the ability to cross-play back to, the Xbox One S or the PS4. And I think that's really important. I think that's huge. What do you think?
It seems almost unfair in a way to me. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you have the additional processing power from a newer generation console, are you going to have less ping, less latency? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Are you going to be naturally faster, better, stronger? Like, is this Daft Punk? Like, what's going to happen? Like, that's what's concerning to me. Or are they going to have to handicap people that are playing from new generation technology to the old consoles? Or is this not even a problem at all and it's just all based off internet speeds anyway? So that's...
Yeah, no, and I think that's excellent, because what you say there more or less kind of informs the debate that's always been said of, should we be able to crossplay between PC and Xbox and a PlayStation, whatever,
yeah.
Right? And it's the exact same argument, right? Because effectively what we're getting in these new boxes is just a more powerful PC, right? Skinned by Microsoft, skinned by Sony for their own deal. And it's the exact same argument now is, hey, if I'm playing Rainbow Six Siege on my new PS5 and you're on your PS4, like, is my frame rate going to be more stable? Like, am I gonna have better graphic rendering and have this pseudo competitive edge, right? And I think that's an interesting challenge that they're going to have to tackle. And I think that's important that they do tackle that, because then it's going to start to set some precedent for how do other developers handle this in other shooting games. And I think that's smart. I think it needs to happen now. I think it's good that they're taking a very well established game and an established IP in the Rainbow Six series,
Mhm.
and that's what they're focusing on.
Let's get into maybe like a conversation about like draw distance. So like if you could see someone further on the map because you're on a PS5, but I'm on a PS4 and there's like more fog of war and I can't see you that far because I don't have the rendering
Sure.
capabilities to do that. Like that's the kind of things that I worry about. And ultimately, yes, this is 100% a good thing because the cross-generational play is something I never thought would be a thing. Like I
Oh
you
yeah.
can't like it's like, I'm going to play Mario Kart 64, but you're going to play it on SNES. Like that was never no one ever thought of something like that. So we live in amazing times that can even be a thing, or that you can even play an Xbox game with someone on PlayStation. That's an incredible thing too, that you can play those online or have those type of online experiences. But the fact that you could cross generational platforms, that's even better. Like that blows me away.
I agree. And I think we never thought of it because the conversations never happened. And because those conversations never happened, it was always just like, meh, whatever, right? Like, we're not going to think about it. It's not our problem. And that's that. And so kudos to Ubisoft for thinking this through already and saying, hey, cool, like, this is a problem that we at least want to approach. Like, and maybe they don't know how to solve it. And maybe the solve is like, sorry, we have to handicap your online play. And like, that's probably going to piss some people off, right? Like,
Yeah.
why am I spending $600 on this brand new console and then I am getting the same graphical performance when I play online because I want to play with my buddy for PS4? Or depending on the person, right? You could say, I get it. That is a completely fair compromise. When I'm playing other games offline or not, an online competitive match, like, it looks amazing and I see the value of what
Hmm.
I've spent money on. But I think it's really going to depend on who is addressing that issue, right? The gamer themselves. And I think it's also going to depend on ultimately what the solution is and how they approach sharing that solution with the community. And so I think that'll be very, very intriguing to see when the time comes.
Can I ask you just one quick question about the, because we're going to be dealing, I'm sure, this year with a ton of the it's on PS4, it's on PS5 kind of type of stuff. Do you think that that's actually going to impact the launch lineups and the excitement that people have for these systems? Because there seems to be so many things like Halo Infinite, it's going to be on Xbox One, but it's also going to be on Series X. So I'm just like preparing myself for that disappointment where there's no true launch exclusives because everything's going to be on everything, it seems.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think it sort of informs what has changed in the industry as a whole, right? Because we don't have that same sort of, oh my gosh, Xbox 360, PS3 launch excitement, right? Like,
Hmm.
lining up, and I'm sure people will line up to buy these consoles, and people, there's going to be lots of excitement. I expect that. How could there not? Gamers are very passionate about gaming and they're going to be excited about it. But it does really change when you start to think about, games from the older gen have started to already be announced for crossing over. It's not a lot of original stuff anymore. There's a lot of remakes and sequels, and that's what we
Hmm.
start to see on, being announced already. And I think it also changes now that a lot of these companies are switching to a games as a service model, right? So you start to think about my, Xbox Series X. Instantly, if I sign in with Game Pass, like, I have this massive library of games at my disposal. And maybe they aren't necessarily like games for that new console, but it gives me this library of things to play while I wait.
Hmm.
And I think that's ultimately better than if you rewind back to like when the Xbox 360 launched. I remember I was just playing Call of Duty, which was amazing. And I loved that Call of Duty, right? That was probably one of the best ones they ever made. Call of Duty 2,
Oh, yeah.
just absolutely pinging my frames with the M1 Garand from across the map, and just so many good memories in that game, right? But that's pretty much all I was playing. There was other little games, but there wasn't a ton, right? Because things got delayed and there wasn't the catalog there. And I think now we start to see these games that are available on demand to just download from the cloud. And I think that's better. I like that more.
Okay.
And maybe it does shift the excitement a bit, but ultimately it's like, I'm
People are
not.
going to play the games. Like,
Yeah, people are playing the games, and I'm not like, oh my
cool.
gosh, like my gaming is completely handicapped until this new console comes up because I have my Switch and I have my PC and I
Yeah.
still have my Xboxes, and like it's good to have this content library available across the board. And I'm not one to at all have like a console allegiance, right? Like
Yeah.
I have a PS4 sitting on my desk right here, right next to me, and I have, two Xboxes in my house, and my Switch is on the dock, and I have an Animal Crossing Switch on the way, and like, and I have Apple Arcade on my iPhone. Like, I'm not one to be like, oh my gosh, like if I can't play it on my Xbox, then I don't want to play it, like, and I hope that mentality starts to fade.
I think it will. One thing that I'm actually excited about is the Burnout Studio taking over Need for Speed.
Criterion games. Yeah, absolutely. It's great for that studio. The last thing Criterion made was Need for Speed, right? Like it was their game, and then they're taking over from who made it before? I don't remember. They had it, and then they made Need for Speed back in 2010, right? Was the last time they did it?
I believe
2011,
so, yeah.
something like that. And then they kind of got used by EA as a ad hoc like support studio, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, come in and clean up messes or help and support or like do some debugging, do some extra help.
Yeah, or like, if you have a developer who's like super overwhelmed and there's content that needs to be made, like they came in and made content. So like on Battlefield 5, the Battle Royale mode, Firestorm, they made that. Or for Star Wars Battlefront, the space combat battles that people really like, they're the ones that develop those, right? And so it's cool that they're going to get to like make full games again, because I think those dudes have earned it. They've kind of been waiting in the wings, working on tasks that were there and kind of just, doing what they were asked. And now it's like, hey, here's Need for Speed. Like it's 10 years later, it's back in your hands. Like do it.
I love Burnout more than most things, and the crash mode is just one of the most delightful things on the planet. And it's really good to see that studio actually have a chance to make something again. And I hope they make something that has nothing to do with what Need for Speed was in the past, because it's been really trying to copy Fast and the Furious. I think that's the kind of the thing that they've been moving towards.
Okay.
And I would like to see just something new from Need for Speed. We have one final story on the scouting report today. It's about the Dark Knight, Mr. Batman, and the Arkham reboot. There's heavy rumors out there that they're going back to the founding blocks of the Wayne Manor there, the original brick and mortar.
Where they
But I
started.
think yes. I think that the thing that's most exciting about the rumors and everything that's out there is how they're trying to make like the craziest, biggest open world ever, and like a really interactive Gotham, and maybe even something that rivals the size of your Assassin's Creed games. So
Okay.
I think that a living, breathing Gotham like that would be cool. And the idea of, you just want enemies just populating the city. You just want like sectors that are for different gangs and different villains. And these have been things that have been kind of sprinkled throughout the Arkham series, but I'm really excited for Arkham to keep continuing and to keep being around.
So this isn't a like remaster of an old Arkham game. This is trying to create a new game in that universe, but just make it bigger and better, right? Am I understanding it right?
Yeah, and I don't believe that they're like keeping any of the old lore either. I think they're telling their own Batman
Hmm.
story, but kind of in the way that like God of War evolved from what it was to what we have now. It's kind of like try to make something new.
Okay. I like it. I think that's super smart. And I'll be very curious to see. There's not a lot of news on that, huh? It's kind of just a rumor right now,
Yeah, it's
or
rumors. Yeah,
okay.
primarily rumors, but it's one of those things where like enough industry insider people are like there's a Batman game being made. Like it's happening. It is, and there's been tons of rumors about the things that they're adding to it, the things they're taking out, and I think that everyone's going to try and pivot to be what Grand Theft Auto Online is, or try to be games of service
Sure.
stuff and have those kind of elements alongside a meaty story or something that you can play around in. But that brings us to the end of the scouting report. And now we're just going to hit you with some quick fastballs, throw some stories at you with just some little tidbits. Actually, we might even shoot one of these stories at you in a very protected and friendly way.
It couldn't be more protected and friendly than a Nerf gun. And it was announced that Halo branded Nerf guns in the model of popular Halo guns will be launching sometime later this year. So we're going to see, I saw a Needler, I saw a BR. I am going to spend some money on some Nerf guns. I don't know about you.
I am spending $59.99 before tax on the assault rifle. I've already looked at the price. It's already in my Amazon wish list. I am buying that thing because there was I can't remember the name of the company, but they made plasma pistols, the Halo pistol, and I have it's not a Nerf, but it's like rubber tips, and then they have like plastic shafts, and it's effectively a Nerf gun, but it wasn't the Nerf official brand.
That's amazing. I can't wait to buy some of those. It's going to be great. It's going to be so good.
Something else it's going to be so good is Witcher Season 2. Game of Thrones actor Herfthiof Thingolflor, however you pronounce his crazy name.
Pretty close.
Tormund Giantsbane from Game of Thrones. A red-bearded, crazy yelling, Brienne loving, chicken wanting man, like just glorious.
In season 2, they announced it. It's confirmed, and they started shooting season 2 this week, I believe. I cannot wait for that. That's going to be amazing.
I can't wait to see what they're cooking up.
I can't wait to see what they're cooking up either. And speaking of cooking up, a new Cooking Mama game, this time focused at the Insta generation. That's right. It's less cooking, more shooting on your pseudo game iPhone. Really focused on food photography this time around, which is maybe, I don't know.
Look, it's not for us specifically because like I've played many a Cooking Mama games in my day. Like just the DS, it was fine. Like, how do you feel about Cooking Mama in general? Just like,
it's great.
Okay,
it's
good.
It's fun, right? Like, I'm not gonna like badmouth it. It's a super fun little game. Like, it's not my favorite game, but like, it's a fun little cooking simulator. And it's I don't want to do a Instagram food shoot simulator. I'm not interested in
You're
that.
already doing that enough in real life, so you're going to want to do it in a game, JD.
That is true. If you visit my Instagram, you will see I post once a year, and so it is important that I, don't do it all the time in my gaming as well.
So the other game that I'm really excited about. So I saw this trailer for Cooking Mama, and obviously it's coming to the Switch. There's a Switch game called Vitamin Connector. Have you watched the trailer for it?
Vitamin Connection, right?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, and I did see the trailer for it. Yeah, it looks really cool.
I like those games like Snipper Clips where it's just like
Yeah.
you and another person and you just got that single Joy-Con and it's the hardest thing to control on because you got real hands that aren't baby hands and it's just like, how do I even play on this tiny little baby thing? And
your whole hand covers the entire thing, and so you're kind of just like this is awkward.
And whoever gets the right Joy-Con really gets screwed over because it's like in the middle with the joystick and it's like, why? Like, your elbows are out. But either way, the game looks good. If you like Switch and you want a game to play couch co-op with, like your loved one or a brother or sister, I think it's going to be a good one.
Or if you have an enemy that you want to infuriate, you play it with them and you give them the right Joy-Con.
Yes. Or if you have a twin, the two of you can play together.
Perfect. All right. What do we got next?
Twin Breaker.
Tell me about it.
So this is a video game by one of my favorite games journalists, Colin Moriarty, formerly of IGN, formerly of Kinda Funny. And he has a podcast called Sacred Symbols, and they decided to make their own video game. So this is a story-driven brick breaker. I guess you go into space in these brick breaker type ships, and essentially you're on a mission to find like people who went in space. But there's just never been a story-driven brick breaker out there. So I'm really excited about it. I want to support the game. They're actually putting out 1,000 copies on Vita and 1,000 copies on PS4 because they're a PlayStation podcast, and it's just really cool. So I support them on Patreon, and I've just been a fan of his for a long time. So I'm excited about that game.
That's fantastic. I'll have to look more into that because, to be honest, I hadn't really dug in too deep. So that sounds like something I would actually love.
I'm hype. Speaking of being hype and large and in charge, have you watched the Pokemon anime?
So before we dig into this too much, on the show notes this week, Elijah and I, throughout the course of the week, we'll go in, we'll add articles and little things we want to talk about. A lot of times I'll like to try to put context to some of the stuff that I drop on the notes, and Elijah will run in and maybe drop a link, or he'll just type something on a bullet point with no context. I'll be trying to figure out all week what it is he's talking about, and I don't find out until roughly a couple minutes before we start to record. And so this week, the bullet reads verbatim, Pokemon anime, Giga Chunky Boys, in parentheses, Pikachu threw dad ass, - Ash caught a Dragonite. And so with that intro, please, Elijah, inform me.
Yes, well, uh, Pikachu, he Gigamaxed in the anime,
I
and
love
he
it.
was a big old chonky boy.
I
And this
love
is
it.
a part of the media's campaign against showing thick Pikachu. Because if you remember, in the
He was fat.
'90s,
He
he
was
was
fat.
a fatty, and then they put him on this like media. I think he's getting photoshopped a lot. They put him
Oh
on this
yeah,
diet or something, and then it's just like thin, trim, like went to the gym Pikachu. And I'm like,
very
no,
lean.
no. Pikachu is a round, chunky boy, and I'm glad to see a return to form in the Pokemon anime. I'm glad to see their integrity in showing what he really is. It's about time. I'm happy, and he does like an Iron Tail move, and it's really just him just throwing that booty in reverse and just like really just like there should have been the boop boop side. Like it was glorious. Oh, and then
Uh,
also Ash caught a Dragonite. Like
yeah,
that's
who
just
gives a
it's
shit
just
about
cool.
that?
So,
We're
yeah,
talking
it's just
about thick Pikachu here, so.
and on that note, I think where it's time to get to the pitch. JD, would you like to pitch me on a game mechanic or a full game or something, a sequel, a reboot? What do you want? Pitch.
I got a pitch for you this week. So speaking of thick boys, we have 4 dogs in my house,
Mm,
and we have 2 Shiba Inus and we have 2 Golden Doodles. And my older Shiba, his name is Okami, and that's wolf in Japanese. So he's pretty cool. But he is a thick little dude. He is a chunky little man. And this time of year is when the 2 Shibas tend to start blowing their coats, and so it just these chunks of hair come off of them. And
mm.
so throughout the week we've been trying to comb them and try to get some of that hair off. And Okami hates being combed, and he is not a fan of it at all. And it got me thinking about how much I appreciate the groomer. And that got me thinking of how amazing would it be if there was a game that was in the same vein as Overcooked, where it's this multiplayer task-based game
Yes.
where you're running a dog grooming area and you have dogs that will like not cooperate and like screw up your flow, and then you'll have like really good dogs, and like you have to worry about running the register and like who's washing and who's cutting and who's blow drying, right? Like, and it would it would more or less fit the same formula, and who wouldn't love it because it's a bunch of dogs.
That's
um
this is a perfect pitch. You look. We haven't assigned a crown yet, but my Mass Effect horror stuff from last week. This is garbage. I'm taking the piece of paper I wrote the notes on. I'm crumpling it up. I'm throwing it in the trash. This is the best pitch I've heard. This is
thank you so
because
much. I
I
know we're
love
2 weeks.
Overcooked.
I love Overcooked too. It's amazing.
It's so good.
And Lauren, my wife, and I love playing Overcooked. And so I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the dogs. I was like, how could I mash up my love of my dogs, my hatred of all their hair that they leave all over my house, and my love of Overcooked, and my love of my Switch? And this is what was born this week to pitch
Success.
to you and to our viewers. So
This
please,
is nothing but success.
I
You're yes.
I appreciate it.
Can can
I'm
I can I
yeah,
throw a moat at you in this game of yours, this Groomer game?
yeah, absolutely.
Can we do like an evolve style where like there's the 4 players that are trying to groom the dogs, but like one person gets to play as one of the dogs, but the rest of the players don't know. So it's like one really like
Oh,
unruly dog because it's
oh.
a player controlled one too. Maybe that's just a mode.
Sure, yeah, and they have like their own controls. Like obviously they get to move around, but like let's say they're in the cage waiting to get groomed, and there's like the player can like tap X a ton or something, and like it breaks open,
Hmm.
and then they get to run around and like sort of cause havoc. Yeah, I like that. Listen, Ghost Town Games, I know you listen to this podcast. Please think about buying the rights to this game from Elijah and I. We're very reasonable. Lots of people will play this. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time this week.
Ghost Town, make it, you cowards.
just you just do it, all right? Stop hiding.
With that, we're going to move to the red card. And if you don't know what the red card is, basically we are looking at something that we kind of want all the way out of games, or something that kind of rubbed us the wrong way this week. Maybe something that we just don't like. We just don't like it in here, and we want it maybe to not be here.
You know what, Elijah? What you're saying right now is it's just such a weak mindset.
Mm.
It's just a weak mindset. And obviously, if you don't get that reference, I'm talking about Ninja earlier this week tweeted out, quote, the phrase "it's just a game" is such a weak mindset. You are okay with what happened, losing, imperfection of a craft. When you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice. There's always something to learn and always room for improvement. never settle. So first off, what a tweet.
Boo. Boo. Yeah, first off, boo. Like, Jesus.
Before we dive into that, one of my favorite replies to this tweet was from Alana Pierce.
Yes, she's amazing. Charlar Nazard.
And all she replied was, "Thank you, bro. Gamers rise up." So anyway, so this tweet itself, I can't tell if this is sarcasm, and if it's not sarcasm, if it's serious. It's so dumb. It's so stupid.
It's one of those things, and like he has so much power that he's above like he'd have to do something crazy to like lose all of his fame and prestige and all that. But like this is just something that's just dumb and bad, and it's a bad take. It's just really bad, especially for like people who, I mean, they don't take gaming that seriously. I think it makes this look like a joke to the rest of the general public too.
Yeah,
that are the non-gamers. I don't know. I felt some type of way about this, definitely, and I was just like, but my reaction was boo. I was just like, why, man? Come on.
Yeah, my gut reaction was boo, and then my secondary reaction was, I cannot wait to see the memes that are born from this.
Oh, then there's some good ones.
There's some good ones.
I think I struggle with like the representatives of the thing that I love the most are, because movies have like, oh man, Al Pacino, and he's going on news stations and he's mother effing like certain political people who he doesn't like, and I'm like, or like, you know, Robert De Niro, I like you. Al Pacino, I like you. I'm like, I'm happy with the way you're representing your industry, or like Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio or George Clooney, and we have like PewDiePie and Ninja, and it's just not great.
Well, yeah, I don't know what to. Yeah, I don't know.
It hurts.
It does.
It hurts. And okay, so what's the other side of this argument though? Like, because is there anything to defend in this? Is because I always want to try and play both sides, but
is there anything to defend? I think it's so. What his core is, if you're okay with something, if you're okay with. What is he getting at? I don't know. He's saying that if you're getting angry after you're losing versus instead of being angry, learning a lesson, then you've lost twice. But like, I can say something is just a game, lose, and still learn from that loss. So does that put me in a weak mindset? I don't know. Like,
well, and this seems directly pointed at multiplayer gamers too. It's just like I did a variety of really good and really crappy today in Battlefield, or Battlefront, I mean, and I just, you know, it's just so hard to like talk about this stuff, because like I want to try and like see what his perspective was, but I just can't find any smiles in the stupidity to me.
I do really crappy playing all online games always, and so I don't know. I don't. I guess maybe it's because I don't view games as a craft, and maybe that's because I'm not a pro streamer.
Well, but are there sports people that say that? Like, because I don't think anyone says. I guess
like when you stop getting angry after losing, you've lost twice, and it's like, well, what? Like, like you're saying you have to get mad to learn a lesson? Like, I can walk away from something not mad, maybe frustrated, and get a lesson from it. Why do I have to get angry?
Yeah, because like a basketball player can lose a game, but they don't have to take that anger home to their family and their kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
anything else.
It's just such a weird. Like, of course, it's your craft. You're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to do it. So I get it. This is a very unique situation for this person, but I just think that it's a wrong opinion or a wrong just mindset to throw out to the masses, because as little as I love it, there are millions of people who take Ninja's word as Bible. Like, there are kids growing up that are just like, hey, if I want to become the next TikTok sensation or the next e-streamer or the next Twitch star, I've got to listen to what Ninja says. I've got to follow the gospel of Ninja and just put a headband on and just run everywhere with my hands back like Naruto. Like,
yeah, I think best summed up is on Twitter at Prec123 says, and here we have a grown man trying to justify why it's okay for him to get angry at a child's game. And I think that basically sums it up. I think that's a good way to end that.
That's a solid bow wrapped on that. And I think that's a solid place to end the show today. We got through everything.
So once again, thanks guys. Episode 2, we're still getting into our groove, but we really appreciate you tuning in. So thanks for jumping on with us. There's a ton of ways to get in touch with us on Twitter. I'm at J to the D. Eli is at RPGino. And you can reach us at GamePitchPod on Instagram. I'm at J to the D, and there's at that guy _Eli. You can email us at gamepitchpodcast@gmail.com, and you can shout into the endless void, and odds are that we will probably hear you.
I will hear, because I am actually playing Control, and I'm on the astral plane, so I
He's
will be
in the
able to
void.
hear you. I am actually in the void.
He's there.
We both also write for ProjectNerd.com. Check that out. I wrote about the Impractical Jokers movie this week, and Star Wars, Clone Wars coming back. I did a recap for that. I'll be doing recaps, I think, every week too. JD, what are you writing for Project Nerd these days?
I just wrote a little feature about my time with Project xCloud, Microsoft streaming. I got into the iOS test beta, been playing some Master Chief Collection on my iPhone and my iPad, and really loving it. So if you want to read more about that, like Eli said, project-nerd.com. And we'll link some of this stuff in the show notes, and you can find all that in the notes on your favorite podcast app.
All right, and thank you so much for listening to the Game Pitch Podcast. Thank you, JD. You're amazing. Listeners, you're amazing. My favorite Game Boy, I will miss you until next week.
And I hope you never call me your favorite Game Boy again. Eli, you're amazing, and thanks again, everyone.